Hello, ladies and gents. This is George Bean, and with Halloween fast approaching, today is my review for Scream 3, which came out in February 2000. Once again, directed by the man with the coolest name ever, Wes Craven. I should, just immediately get to the plot. The film is set 3 years after the events of Scream 2 and follows Sidney Prescott, played once again by Neve Campbell, who has gone into self-imposed isolation after the previous 2 massacres, but ends up finding herself being drawn to Hollywood after a new copycat ghost-faced killer begins killing the cast of the film within the film, Stab 3, following a trail of clues that reveals more of Sidney's mother, Maureen's dark past, and how it links with Sid. Now, I don't necessarily need to talk about our 3 principal cast members again, but one thing to mention is that it was at this point when David Arquette and Courtney Cox were married to each other, which is why Courtney is credited as Courtney Cox Arquette in this movie. You can see that in the end credits. But for the new cast members, we have Patrick Dempsey as Detective Mark Kincaid. He was pretty good in this, and he has a pretty good scene where he has a somewhat friendly chat with Sid, and even ends up trying to help her out in the end. But the funny thing is, about Dempsey is that 11 years later, he would end up in another movie writer Aaron Kruger wrote, that being Transformers 3 Dark of the Moon, which is odd. How did that happen there? He should just avoid movies written by Aaron Kruger. I don't know. But anyway, we also have Parker Posey as actor Jennifer Jolie. She's pretty funny in this, as she's supposed to portray as Gail Weathers in the Stab 3 movie. And funnily enough, Parker would end up being in 2006 Superman Returns, directed by Bryan Singer, of which she was also really good in. I honestly wish she had played Lois Lane in that movie instead. She at least had some charisma in that movie, unlike Kate Bosworth. But, wishful thinking. One other person to mention is the character Tyson Fox, who was played by Dion Richmond, who, as you may know, was in the 2006 Adam Green slasher film, Hatchet. I actually did a review for that film long ago. He was pretty funny in that movie, too. I'd recommend checking out Hatchet. Maybe my review. And finally, we also have Jenny McCarthy as actress Sarah Darling. Darling, yeah. Who complains that she only has a minor role that gets killed off early in the Stab 3 movie, which is ironic because she ends up dying early on in this movie here. I think McCarthy's death sequence is possibly my favorite death scene in this film, as she hides in a storage room full of hanging Ghostface costumes, one of which is the killer is actually wearing when he attacks her. And before he kills her, she fights him with whatever she could get her hands on, specifically a knife and a machete. And I just love her frustrating reactions when she finds out that these weapons are actually just rubber props for the movie. Oh, and also, Lance Henriksen, you know, Bishop from Aliens, is in this movie, believe it or not, playing as film producer John Milton, which is a reference to the actual 17th century poet who wrote Paradise Lost. Now, as you've noticed in the credits, this was actually the one film in the franchise that was not written by Kevin Williamson. It was instead written by Aaron Kruger. Kruger, yeah, I know. But that doesn't make him any more cooler. Aaron Kruger is an atrocious screenwriter. Aside from such good films from him that he has written, such as this a bit, the 1999 thriller Arlington Road, starring Jeff Bridges and Tim Robbins, and finally the 2002 American remake of The Ring. But aside from that, is there anything else he has written that could have passed as decent? He has written Transformers 2, 3, and 4, or Revenge of the Fallen, Dark of the Moon, and Age of Extinction, until they booted him off the fifth film, The Last Night. He'd also co-written the script for the 2016 Scarlett Johansson film, Ghost in the Shell, and look how that movie turned out, both critically and financially. Surprised? I am not. But now, it also seems that he is slated to write the script for the 2019 remake of Dumbo to be directed by Tim Burton. I'll bet $20 that movie ends up bombing because of Kruger. Now, what I should mention is how the change from Williamson to Kruger came to be. And the script went through a massive change in the 3 years between Scream 2 and 3. Really, Williamson had a completely different story in mind for this film. As it should be noted, he had 2 5-page outlines for the 2 sequels written alongside the script for Scream 1 when selling it, to lend the possibility of it being a franchise if it ever got made. So after the release of Scream 2, Williamson did write a 30-page treatment for this film. It was originally going to be set back in the small town of Woodsboro, and was going to have a completely different set of killers to be revealed. So, what I'm about to tell you, this is going to be a bit of a spoiler twist to it. But in Williamson's treatment, the killers were going to be revealed to actually be a stab fan club of teens. Their motive was to be their quest for fame, a desire to be famous, much like what Sidney had become. In Williamson's own words, in the end, Sidney was gonna run into the house and find everybody dead, but then all of a sudden, they all rose up, revealing them all to be the killers. I think that would have been a really great twist. It would have been unexpected, everyone being the killer. It kind of is kind of like an homage to the 1980s horror film April Fool's Day, in a way. Williamson had actually revealed his original killer fan club twist in a 2013 interview when he was promoting his new television series, The Following, of which he also revealed that fan club twist was what inspired that show. But of course, scheduling conflicts ensued, as Williamson had to jump ship to work on his directorial debut project, the 1999 teen black comedy Teaching Mrs. Tingle, starring Helen Mirren and Katie Holmes, a certain pet project which Williamson had initially written before he wrote Scream, but had languished in development hell. As a result, the Weinsteins decided to go and hire Aaron Kruger, having been impressed by his script for Arlington Road, to helm the writing duties and develop a script based on Williamson's notes. But then, April 20th, 1999, came a shockingly tragic event that would come to be known as the Columbine High School Massacre. I don't want to go deep into that subject, but after the massacre, shockwaves were felt throughout the country in how violence in media had been depicted, and its supposed effect on children, and all that stuff. The media tried to blame violence in movies, especially horror movies, for the 2 Columbine shooters' actions, when really there were many other contributing factors for their actions, such as being bullied by their bullied classmates, and the teachers turning a blind eye to it. I think these people need to stop looking to movies and media as a scapegoat for such horrific incidents like this. I mean, take me for example. I myself was once a victim of school bullying during my middle school years. I was accused of being gay, even though my style of clothing and hat said otherwise. But they didn't listen. They just kept calling me that word. Then in my first high school year, they started accusing me of plotting to blow up the school, even though I do not know to this day even know how to build a bomb. I suck at math and chemistry. And even if I did know, there's a highly likely chance that I may end up blowing myself up accidentally. And to top it all off, I have seen dozens of horror movies ever since I was like 4 or 5 years old. I have watched Scream, Freddy Krueger, and even Pet Sematary. And now, here I am. Look how I turned out. I'm fine. I'm okay. No homicidal thoughts going through my head. In fact, you may probably catch me watching Toy Story, or even WALL-E or something. If that doesn't tell you how harmless I am, I don't know what will. Oh, and one thing to mention. WALL-E. That is a movie I really want to review in the future. And what with next year being the 10th anniversary of WALL-E's release, I think I'm gonna get around to reviewing that movie by that point, because I love this movie. It's possibly my favorite Pixar film. Okay, we're getting off track here. But still, Aaron Kruger was brought on to step in for Williamson's absence and write the script. With Columbine in their minds, the environment of Scream 3's development had become even more complicated than with the previous films. You must remember, filming on Scream 3 had only started in July 1999, only 3 months after Columbine. Eager to avoid criticism or connection to such incidents like Columbine, Williamson's notes were pretty much largely discarded, out the window, as the studio insisted that the script should focus on the comedic elements while significantly reducing the violence. The setting was changed from Woodsboro to Hollywood as a way of moving the characters to bigger places, from high school to college to the city of Hollywood. For another reason, however, the move away from Woodsboro was mandated, as it was considered that a film containing violent acts of murder in and around the small town of Woodsboro and the associated school would attract significant negative criticism and attention that could be detrimental to the production and studio. Furthermore, Kruger has admitted that he hadn't actually seen the first 2 films before being hired, so he had to read copies of Williamson's scripts for Scream 1 and 2, as well as watching them to better understand the characters and tone. At one point, he had written the character of Sydney to be much like Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2, a more action-oriented heroine, to which Wes Craven had to intervene and correct the script to bring the characters closer to their previous appearances. Because of Kruger, this ended up resulting in the film going into a completely different direction than what Williamson had originally intended. Here, now we have Ghostface running around Hollywood, blowing up houses. Yeah, I shit you not. He actually blows up a house halfway through the movie. If you ask me, I believe that is what got Aaron Kruger the job to write Transformers. It's like as if Michael Bay watched the explosion scene in Scream 3 and said, "We need this guy to write our movie. He gets what I'm saying." I don't know, but now one thing I should talk about is the big twist in this film. Like the other Scream films, there's the big twist revealing the identity of the killer. So if you have not seen this movie and don't want the twist spoiled, please stop this video and go watch the movie first. Okay? Okay. So in this movie, the killer is revealed to actually be the Stab 3 director, Roman Bridger, who also reveals himself to be Sydney's half-brother. It turns out that during Marine's stint in Hollywood, Marine was gang raped by film producer John Milton, which resulted in her becoming pregnant with Roman. She ended up abandoning him when she moved on to a new life and a new name. Years later, as an adult, he tried to reunite with her, but she had moved on and was already married with Neil Prescott, Sid's father, thus rejecting Roman out of her life. This caused Roman to plot revenge against her by filming her affairs and showed Billy Loomis the footage of his father with Marine, which motivated him to kill her, thus setting off the events in the first two films. However, when Roman discovered just how much fame Sidney had attracted due to those events, Roman thus snapped and plotted his vendetta against Sidney, luring her out of hiding. To talk about the twist, it's really not that bad of an idea to have in the third film, but it is also Scream 3's downfall, I believe. The fact that this guy spent, 5 years of his life setting up this master plan to taunt his half-sister, all because of a little wronging that she actually had nothing to do with. I don't think she was even born yet when that wronging happened. It was their mother, Marine, who wronged him. But hey, he was so fucked up in the head, he probably wasn't even thinking straight when he planned this. And so you're telling me that Billy and Stu just went along with what this guy had told them? And even if so, wouldn't they have thought of telling Sidney about such a little revelation in the first film's climax? You'd think Billy would have said, "There's more to this than what we're letting on to, Sidney." But you won't know about that until the sequels. But whatever. And another unrelated problem I have is when Sid finally defeats Roman by stabbing him with a fireplace utensil, and he dies, saying that he was never superhuman at all. In all honesty, I think they should have left that as it was, with Roman dying by Sid's hands, holding her arms as he dies. I think it is a very powerful moment between them, and to have the big villain go out like that, as I would put it, not with a scream, but with a whimper, it would have been a powerful moment to end the trilogy on. But then they had to ruin it by having Roman jump back to life, for one last scare, before Dewey finally puts a bullet in his head. Because it worked so well in the first film, we have to use it again. Now, I'm done now. So, now, to talk about the critical and commercial receptions the film received. Upon release in February 2000, the film received a mixed critical reception, with many citing that it had become exactly what the series had originally spoofed, and the fact that it was no longer fresh anymore after 3 movies. In particular, note that the characters, critic Roger Ebert said, quote, "They are so thin, they're transparent," end quote. But he did give Neve Campbell's performance some strong appraisals, saying, "The camera loves her. She could become a really big star and then giggle at the clips from this film at her AFI tribute," end quote. But my 2 cents? Yes, it is a weak entry in the series, but I do not think it is that bad at all. It is still a worthy conclusion to what was initially a trilogy. The best elements, in my opinion, all involve Sidney and what skeletons in the closet she ends up having to face. Neve Campbell still gives all of her A-game in this role, and I do believe this is her very best Sidney performance alongside that in the first film. What I like about this film is how it explores more of Sid's mother's dark past and how it all sparked everything that has been happening around Sid. In fact, you could easily say that Marine is essentially the plot propeller of this entire series, as it was her actions and her sins that propels all of this shit in this series. As I've said before, the movie is still good, but it does have its flaws, mainly with the Hollywood setting, which I think is an oddball choice to go, as it kind of made the films seem a bit too self-aware, and it kind of reminds me a bit too much of Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which also had a similar premise. I think I can name two big contributing factors to the movie's faults. One, the change in screenwriters from Kevin Williamson to Aaron Kruger, which resulted in a change of vision and direction and tone. And two, the Columbine shootings having affected the film's violent tone, resulting in its comedic elements taking over. But overall, I would give Scream 3 a rating of 7 stars out of 10, because I think it is still an enjoyable film to watch, and a perfect trilogy concluder. But that was until Scream 4 came out about 11 years later. But that's a story for another time. So, thanks for watching, ladies and gents. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will get around to reviewing Scream 4 at another time. So until then, see you next time. Peace.